We're going to start today with a special technique we use of how to wipe our nose with a 9mm climbing rope. You notice perfect diameter. You take it, you start from the end here, and then you just go. So that's how we're going to start the video. So welcome to the ice climbing video here.
Welcome to our Intro to Ice Climbing video. We were fortunate enough to get 4 glacier guides from Iceland to all contribute their knowledge to make this a super helpful video to watch before you go ice climbing for the first time with someone who knows what they're doing. But instead of breaking this video into 3 30-minute videos, we combined it all into one because if you're trying to watch the one, you probably don't want to have to chase around the channel to go find the others or wait for them to come out, since we are releasing this halfway through winter. Now this is a longer tutorial type video, but we definitely have 2 very entertaining videos where we break test ice screws and V-threads, and you should definitely go check this out, and that'll be in the description below. Now you can find the written portion and this video always in the course section of our website. It's always going to be free, and it's going to live next to the bolting Bible and the Big Wall Bible and our canyon rope systems and the other courses we have on there. This is just adding to that library. If this video inspires you to get into ice climbing, please let me know. That's always fun to hear. Now, whether or not you're trying to learn ice climbing or you're a guide and checking this out to see if you can recommend it to people before you take them out for their first day, let us know how we can make this better for you to learn or you to recommend. We want to keep making these tutorial type videos as helpful as possible, and you'll notice every one we put out is going to always be better than the last. We're always trying to improve, and we do that through your guys' feedback. So this video is broken up into 4 parts. The first part is we talk about the gear. The second part, we talk about the anchor inside a controlled environment. And then the third part is where we talk about the anchor and show it to you outside on the glacier. And the fourth part is talking about the technique of actually climbing the ice. And then we'll have some bonus material where we have fun on what they call the Gnar. Now, yes, this is a video on glacial ice and not on waterfall ice. And yes, there is a difference. And this is why you should go with somebody who knows what they're doing. You still have the crampons and the axes, you still have the technique, and the anchor building concepts are the same. You just have to understand that waterfall ice may act differently when you start putting screws in it. But regardless of what you're gonna go climb, this is a good foundation to watch before you go do it. So the glacier guides in this video gave up a week of their time to break the stuff in the ice with us and show us this stuff so we can make this video. And when we filmed inside, it was like the only sunny day that was out there. And it might have been the only sunny day in Iceland for the year, who knows? But they did contribute a lot, so make sure you shower them with love in the comments as well. And though the edit's never as perfect as I want, I definitely spent more time editing this than I spent on ice in Iceland. And we were able to figure out how to make the audio sound clean, even though we were walking on ice with the crampons. And I want to emphasize one last time, please don't go out on your own without going with somebody who knows what they're doing. Don't watch a bunch of people on YouTube you don't know and think that you can observe in an hour, hour and a half everything you need to know, because there's a lot of little nuances and stuff that you just can't cover in a video without it just being super boring. Please understand that this is just to help you absorb so much more when you actually see it in person from somebody who knows what they're doing. I hope this helps. Enjoy.
My name is Ásgeir. I've been a glacier guide since 2015. I've done also a lot of waterfall ice climbing, and I've traveled a lot through the Alps, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and just been all over exploring mountains.
So you like it?
I do like it, yeah.
So I'm also a glacier guide. My name is Janet. I work for Glacier Adventure as well. And I'm actually from Czech Republic. And before I moved to Iceland, I used to be a rock climber.
How long have you been a guide?
Like 3 years in Iceland here. Yeah, it's the Association of Icelandic Mountain Guides.
So I'm Stefan. I am originally Austrian. I have been climbing in the Austrian and European Alps for way longer than I care to admit. I moved to Iceland about 10 years ago, became a guide here. I have my own company. I don't only do like mountain tours, but all sorts of bespoke adventures, from going with kids to going ice climbing and summiting the highest mountains. I'm also part of the Icelandic Search and Rescue, so we see all the things that happen if you don't go with a guide, so please don't give him over with that. Thank you.
Now, so your tours involve anything anybody wants to do around Iceland?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm mostly based here in the southeast because it's just the best place in Iceland to be, especially if you want to play in the mountains or on the glaciers. But I've gone everywhere else as well. All sorts of climbers come here and go ice climbing me for the first time, but with a rock climbing experience, of course, we go at a different level than somebody who has maybe never seen anything vertical before.
Okay, so what's the first piece of gear we're going to cover?
The harness.
All right, let's grab a harness.
On the harness, what I usually have are these like clippers, like tool carriers, where I put the ice screws or like ice axes where I need it. Always like put it on empty.
Cool. So it's a normal climbing harness. If you don't have any climbing experience whatsoever, you can go to a climbing gym and learn a lot of just basic rope stuff, how to tie figure eight, just how top roping works. What else? What other things should we know about a harness?
It's good if it can fit more clothes than maybe you're in a rock climbing harness. Maybe when you're rock climbing, you're in warm, and you don't need so many layers.
So if like a medium's kind of tight on you, you might want a large. Do you guys put all your jackets on first?
Yeah, we try to do that. Like usually my system for climbing is if I'm, waterfall climbing, for example, I'll generally just have my climbing layers and then I'll throw a belay jacket on top for the belay.
That covers everything.
That does cover.
But you're just belaying.
But you're just belaying, exactly. So you don't need to access anything.
And also, if you are climbing, you are going to get warmer if you're actively.
Exactly. So usually I'll just do base layer, mid layer, and soft shell or Gore-Tex. That's my 3 layers usually for climbing.
Okay. What's the next piece of gear? Helmet. When's a helmet come?
Yeah, like if you're concerned with overhead hazard, you put the helmet on immediately.
Yeah, so there's one thing about some helmets you can buy basic climbing helmets that have like a provision for eye protection, which can be really nice for ice climbing because
built in.
It's built in, or they have like an anchor point you can clip it on. So you have like a face shield that covers your eyes because when you're climbing, you're producing a lot of ice spray, and that's not nice in our eyes. Yeah, so sunglasses or some other eye protection can be really nice. But sunglasses, if you're starting to heat up, they'll fog up and you don't see anything anymore. So before we talk about the crampons, we need to talk about the shoes that you're going to use with your crampons because they need to fit together. And there are some types of shoes that are going to work very well with ice climbing, some not so much. So you have these super soft boots, bend really easily. And then you have shoes like this that are already pretty rigid. They bend a little bit, but not too much. And then you come to this kind of boot, which is just rock solid. There's no give in the soles. And then maybe if you want to go really crazy, there's like this high alpine boots. They're basically the same as this, only with the waterproof cover and maybe warmer. So each of these shoes works with a slightly different type of crampon. These very soft shoes, they need crampons that are going to flex with the shoe. Otherwise, you'll either ruin your shoe or your crampon, and definitely your day. Also because of what you're going to do with ice climbing. These shoes are not going to work for ice climbing. Okay, so we're left with these 2 types of shoes, and they take slightly different crampons. So you can see this little nose here on the sole. Certain types of crampons that can use this for mounting. Right? And there's also a lip here on the back. That's also for a crampon. If you look at this shoe here, it doesn't have that on the front. It's just a smooth sole, but it has this little lip on the back. Can be used. It doesn't have to be used, but it's nice if you have crampons and shoes that both have this system. Now the crampons, we have crampons that are made more for walking and less for climbing, and then we have crampons that are designed more to climb. This is basically like the most comfortable crampon type that you can get for walking. You can see it has these baskets on the front and on the back, so it works with basically any type of shoe. It doesn't need this little lip on the back, definitely not on the front. Just tied with the strap, and you can attach to your shoes. So this might even work with these softer shoes that I showed you before. And you can see that the center bar in the middle makes the crampon adjustable, and it also flexes, right? So these crampons are going to help you like walk more or less normally. But of course, when you start to climb, this flex is something you do not want to have. Great for walking, not great for climbing. Then you might have crampons like this. So they look very similar to the ones I just showed you. But the center bar here is much stiffer. It doesn't give as much. So if you try to use these crampons with these very soft shoes, you're going to break the center bar. So now let's have a look at the crampons you actually are going to use for climbing. They tend to look something like this. There's more points on the crampons. They're sharper, and you can see these front teeth here are vertical. Whereas on these crampons, these front teeth are horizontal. So these work better in snow. These work really well on hard ice.
Quick question. Why do you have so many teeth on this if you're just front pointing or using the toes as you kick in? You have like just an alligator mouth full of teeth over here.
You might not always be in perfectly vertical terrain. There might be some other slopes.
Angled,
yeah.
Okay.
And then you want to use as much traction as you can get. And also there might be some very awkward foot placements where you kind of sidestep onto a ledge or something.
Are these special metal that stay sharp longer, or is they just steel?
It's steel.
The other day we walked on this type, and I'm just walking on mixed terrain, right? Rock and then ice and then rock and ice. Doesn't that dull this really badly?
Yeah, as you can see, it does.
Yeah. So when I tried to ice climb with this flexible, dull, I was struggling.
Yeah.
So you try to avoid it, or you sharpen it when you get home.
Yeah. Maybe one more thing to point out about crampons. First of all, you need to adjust them to the size of the shoe. So there's these little flaps here, different styles, but you can basically slide this up and down and adjust perfectly to your shoe. And just like your shoes, they come in left and right. They're not exactly the same. It's kind of hard to see probably on the video, but the best way to remember is there is always, or almost always, some sort of latch for the leash, and that's on the outside. It's always on the outside. So, since we talked about stiff crampons, I retired these a long time ago. You can see this type of crampon. It basically has like a rigid frame. The problem is this is aluminum, and over time, even the hard boots flex a little bit and eventually breaks.
As you were mentioning the ski bindings, because there's no regulation between like the boots and how to fit them on crampons, as we have like in ski touring.
Gotcha. So the ski touring, you have things are built for things.
Yeah, it's always like.
This is not built for things.
No. I mean, there are like different brands have different shapes, and it doesn't always fit. So you see, like it's bended here, and the shoe has this pad, right? And it was supposed to be sitting at this little bend.
Okay.
But on my shoe, for some reason, it's like too short. And then like when you're smashing the ice, right? When you're kicking, the shoe is moving further and further. And then until this clip, which is resting at the lip, it's completely loose. So then we actually, with Outskate, invented this thingy. And that's the solution, right? Now my shoe is sitting onto this rope. And it's perfect.
It's so funny how much duct tape is involved. I think that's the part that I like the most.
So here in this part.
Oh, because of it?
Yeah, because it's like constantly like reaching.
There's this sharp metal in there, basically.
You can see it a bit here.
So that the sharp edges here are grinding out way.
They dig into the shoe.
Duct tape, man, that's the thing.
So I would say there's still, some progress, for crampon manufacturers to kind of work on.
One of the problems is that the shoe kind of slips into the basket more. And this is where this wire really helps, right? Because now the wire is actively holding the shoe back together, and there's no chance it can slip forward.
So the wire is maybe better for this?
Once you're like really kicking hard and have shoes that are compatible with the system, the wire is going to be the best option.
If it's a good fit.
Are you buying this stuff online and hoping, or can you go to a store and check?
You go to a store and really check. If you want your stuff to fit.
So this is really hard to buy online blindly.
Can be.
Yeah.
When you're starting out, I'd always recommend a basket and a clip in the heel. Basket in front, heel in the back. But then once you kind of have more experience, and maybe then you can have, if you really just want to dig into the weeds and try to find a combo that works for you.
Gotcha. But this is the one to start with is.
It's easier to get it right.
Gotcha. Even with duct tape.
The clip in the back, basket in the front.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but this particular model, it comes with both the basket and the wire.
Why do you have one short or one long and two short?
So it penetrates easier into the ice.
So you might get all 5 knives in the wall.
Then you're super solid feet.
But you got to keep your heel down when you want to stand on your toes like a climber.
It takes some getting used to.
Got to watch the whole course. Okay. What's the next caveat besides duct taping rope to your crampons? Stacking them together? You want to show us how to do that?
Sure. Let's talk about how to stack the crampons to put them in your backpack. So when you're wearing them, they're like this, extended and everything is up. You just fold the baskets down if you can. Usually most of the models can. Collapse the center bar, and now you have a really flat crampon. I like to put them with the spikes into each other, so you have less chance of snagging stuff. And then I take the straps, I wrap them around, and then you have a nice package. This you can strap to the outside of your backpack. Some of these crampons come with the case. Put them inside the case, and then it's nice to just throw it in your backpack.
If you don't have the case, do the front pointers still risk puncturing stuff in your backpack?
They can, yeah. You're going to want to be careful with that. You can improvise the case, you can just take any kind of fabric. You can take a t-shirt, like you can take an old gator, anything you can think of that's like kind of a sturdy, tough fabric.
Anything that's not puffy.
Yeah, basically.
Do you put them on the inside or the outside of the pack? I keep putting mine on the inside because I have a haul bag.
Yeah, it is nice to put them on the inside of the backpack for weight distribution. but it's more kind of practical, fast, and easy to strap them on the outside. So I would say this is personal preference. If you know you're going to be hiking for a while with them, try to put them like somewhere like where it's close to the, to here, So these are more common for walking and kind of similar, you can bend the baskets down. You can stack them just like the other ones. These are a little bit more bulky. There's a little bit more rubber, plastic stuff. I would probably do it like that.
And that's teeth together.
Teeth together.
They're still pointy.
They're still pointy, but these are kind of dull. I wouldn't worry.
They are, I know.
I wouldn't worry too much about climbing and destroying stuff, but still, be careful.
Yeah.
You can also put them one inside the other. This is usually how we do it when we're guiding. It kind of goes nice like that. Takes up maybe a little bit less space. Give clients their gear like this, we call it the glacial lollipop.
So if you feed your ice axe and screw it up on your backpack before you attach it on the top, you can put this in here. And you attach the top part. Now everything is ready to go on the outside of the backpack. This faces away from the backpack, so it's in the clear.
And if you fall backwards, you're guaranteed to stick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So the crampon has this middle part, which is great because it can collapse. It can be smaller, but these holes are for sizing it. There's this part with this pin inside. I just lift the thing, move it. I size it to a hole where I want it. And maybe this is my size. It always has to fit in between these two guys and these two guys at the back. So these are the 4 points of contact. So I go with the toes first, and then you see it's perfect at the back. And then this clip, I bring it to the slit, and I just clip it. It's like the ski binding. And then I have this strap, make sure that there's no twist. I go in front, make it tight. And then these rings are always outside, so I go through both of them. I open it, put it back through the part with the black tag on it, and I make it tight. And there it is. With the rest of the strap, so there are like various things that you can do with it. Some people just like wrap it around here, around the front basket. But what I like the most, I just like take the whole thing, and everyone hates me for this, and I just like put it in my sock. Unless I have gaiters.
Okay, show us the way that most people would do it.
We just basically wrap it on the outside.
Yeah.
You don't want anything in between your shoes. It's basically any freestyle you wish to do. Whatever. Good to go.
My preferred method with the strap of the crampon, the extra strap, I just cut it to length. I usually leave about this much coming out of the buckle. If you have multiple boots, make sure the strap is big enough for your biggest boots, ski boots usually being the...
In addition to the size adjustment for the length of the crampon, you can also see that the front, independent if it's a wire or the basket, it can be adjusted to several holes here. And the same goes for the back with a clip here. It also has multiple holes here to adjust it perfectly to your boot.
Okay, so you have 3 holes here, 3 holes here.
Yeah.
And then all of these holes to...
Yeah.
This is the other type of the crampons, like the just for hiking. It goes a bit different because it doesn't have the clip at the back, right? It starts the same. Some of them just go under, some of them go in a hole. And I go across, but I don't have the rings here. I always have them outside, right? So now I have to go across all the boat and both of the rings, and I look it here. What I feel like about like tucking in the shoes, because everybody's like laughing at me, like, "Hey, Jana, this is for clients, come on." And because at the end of the day, we're rock climbing, or ice climbing, there is a lot of dripping water and snow, and then it freezes over, and then everybody's like, how can I untie this knot? And I'm like, because it doesn't freeze in the sock.
It doesn't freeze in the sock. Yeah. That's true.
Once my knot on the crampons froze so bad, I literally had to cut the strap off to get the crampon off my shoe. Either pre-cut your strap to length or keep it in your sock.
Now we're going to cover ice axes. If you've ever been to an REI store, it's the door handle to go spend all your money. Is this the ice axe you guys do everything with?
No. So this ice axe is basically made for walking. It's great on flat terrain or a terrain that's like slightly profiled.
Okay.
But this is not something to go ice climbing, right? This is
It's not a hiking pole, though, because otherwise you're just kind of like...
It's for sliding clients.
it's for sliding clients and like easy to moderate terrain, I would say.
And we were chipping off some of the snow-crusted ice with the back of this.
Yeah, with the ice, yeah, exactly. So if you want to go climbing, don't buy this guy. If you want to go on like long glacier hikes and easy to moderate terrain, this is the one to buy.
Cool. It also dubs as a boom mic.
Next progression, if you compare this, is like this ice axe with a slight curve to it. It's a shorter shaft. So this is an axe where you can get into more difficult terrain, but if you want to climb with this axe, it's going to be awkward and difficult.
What makes it awkward?
Ergonomics, basically, right? You can get those with a tiny little trigger to hook a finger into.
Okay.
But it's still hard to hold this, to really have a good pull on this axe. This is not what it's made for. This is, however, still an ice axe because it has a clear shaft that it can stick into the snow. A definitely improvised short-term snow anchor. Not really for climbing, more for, I would say, alpine tours, higher terrain.
Here we have the next progression. This is a Petzl Quark, and this is a very general ice climbing ice axe. This can be used for a variety of things. It's a good starter ice axe. You can also use it in the mountains, and it's a good all-round tool. It's got more aggressive handle. You can get good purchase. It's got a nice handle. You can adjust the grip. You can move it up depending on your hand.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can grab it down here, or you can grab it up here. You could even go all the way up here if you can like shove it into snow on like 50-degree snow. You know, it's super versatile axe. This is the axe that I would recommend for many beginners.
Is there a more aggressive one?
Yes, there is.
And it's this one.
Ah,
So you can see that it has this handle. There's even like more tilted, and it gives you nice grip. You also have this like higher handle, and you can see like the position. Like if we align them, and it has such a big hand.
On the other side. Like now you can really see the difference in the curve.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can go to very like a steep terrain, like overhanging, and with this one.
But if you try to use this on low angle stuff,
It's kind of awkward.
yeah. If you're just doing a 30-meter overhang thing, maybe for cool photos, maybe in a Mulan, then like you want this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be doing,
You're probably going for this one. This is like the most versatile, I would say.
Okay.
It can do pretty much anything. You know, you can climb really steep stuff with it. The other more aggressive one would be better, but this would be the all-rounder.
dry tooling is when you put the tip on the rock. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Mhm.
Yep.
And can you do that to any of these axes?
You probably can, but you would need like, you can see it says here like pure ice. So you would need like a different.
That's not a brand name. That's the
It's
suggestion.
just, it's not.
Okay.
It's like the type of the blade.
Okay.
You can change the blade
You
out.
can change the blade.
If you use the axe a lot, you know, you're going to wear out the blade, or you might even break it if you're really aggressive. You can sharpen them, you know, and once you sharpen them, you know, many times they're going to just be shorter and shorter, and then it's going to be just like you're going to start actually, you can smash your knuckles on the ice, you know, when the blade is shorter, because like your hand touches the ice before the blade.
I learned. That's the thing.
Yeah. So definitely change your blades out if they're getting worn out. But then, yeah, like if you want to do more like mixed climbing or dry tooling, you can get more kind of beefier blades.
Is it the metal thicker, or is it a different type of metal?
Thicker.
Okay.
Can also be like more hardened type of metal.
But if you're just doing pure ice,
And you want a thinner blade that will penetrate the ice easier.
because you want it in deep.
Blades look very similar, but this one has an attachment here, and that's an extra weight. So you can tune your ice axe also just to how it feels, how the weight distribution in the axis. You can get like different weights here.
Because you're flicking that in. Are you clipping yourself to these things? Are you attaching yourself in case they fall? Do you want them attached to you in case you fall?
If you really bury them in there, you can. And like, you know, you might do that if you're too pumped to put in a screw, for example.
Okay.
But ideally, you should be choosing your ice climb appropriately so you don't get pumped while you're leading.
You can see there's this little openings here, and you can clip into that.
Do you just already have like a sling girth hitch to your...
You can do that, yeah. And these are not, of course, meant to belay anybody. To maybe hold your body weight, but that's all this is really used for.
Okay,
right?
rated for 150. Actually, it's like an issue with this Nomex, with this like third generation. So you should be, I feel, clipping into this hole.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, if you clip here.
Yeah, because it's also like adjustable for the size.
Because this is meant to be clipped in lanyards to hold the weight of the axe, not your weight.
Yeah, like on this,
On this particular petal.
like the, like on the older ones,
Gotcha.
it was, there's like a hole
And
where you can go. Yeah.
It's like here, right?
So
It's probably more beefy, don't you think? It seems like it's integrated into the handle.
Yeah, it's like this one. Yeah, it's the same style.
Well, make sure you just understand your axe that you're buying. If it's rated, does the instructions that it comes with, does it'll tell you?
Read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, read it.
It should.
Read it. Imagine that.
It will not listen everything that you should not do, but it will It will tell you like the things you're supposed to do with it.
Okay.
If you're worried about dropping your tools, you can also get something like this. And this is basically a lanyard that you clip into your harness. And then you have 2 ends here that clip into your tools.
Okay.
However, if you clip this into your harness, there's a problem.
Do they come at you?
They can come at you, yeah. They can and they will. And the direction they'll come at you is directly at your face.
So smile real big if you
No, the trick is if you go top roping, which is probably what almost everybody's going to start out with, is clip these guys down here into your tools, and this one you clip into the top rope instead of your harness. This way, if you drop them, they'll go down and they'll just dangle just above your attachment point, and you can catch them. But if you fall and the ice axes don't fall with you, they'll just be up here. They slide along the rope, basically, right? Top roping, remember, have this in your rope and not in the harness.
What's this hole for? Lightweight?
You can clip a carabiner in there.
You would clip like also like the sling, no? Just put tie a sling. So if this is the only thing that you have when you go something vertical, you tie a sling and put the hand into a sling so it's not sliding down.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, what do you got here?
So yeah, we're talking about the sling and then attention tool here.
That's the perfect.
So this is like a historical artifact. Very old.
AKA your first one.
So you can see it came with this sling here to give you like every support so you don't slide off, right? Because it has like still a very straight handle here.
Yeah, the handle's not ergonomic to your
The pinky rest, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, like with the gear we have these days for anything we do is just makes it so much easier.
Let me tell you about the back of the axe. So there is either this hammer, which is for like pythons or snow pickets, or basically whatever you need to like get there. And this adze, it will be for cleaning the ice or the snow to get like to solid ice for like a nice protection placement. So you can see this is like the same ice axe, and this one has the adze. So when I actually smashed my tool, I was climbing with this type, and I'm so glad there was nothing. Because imagine if this would happen with this. Like I would be missing half of my mouth.
This, because it's an aggressive axe, doesn't have anything on the back.
If you're climbing aggressively, you don't need to hammer anything, and you don't need to clean. Some of them do have the option to put it.
Yeah, so that's just another variation of
a micro hammer here, if an adze. You can take this off entirely and have still like this little protrusion or nothing at all here. But if you buy an axe that has something here you want to get rid of, you take this off. You need to fill the hole that you're creating here, which just screws back together. You're squeezing this in a way that's not supposed to squeeze. And it might actually break the shaft. Modify your axe, make sure it's in compliance with how it's intended to be modified.
And I would say like these tools, like the hammer and the adze, this is like more for like mountain, like multi-pitch, longer stuff. If you're just single pitch climbing, you generally don't need this stuff.
Let's talk about ice first. Like rock, if you hit it and it sounds hollow, it probably is hollow. Ice, how do you know if it's good or not?
There's several things you can look for. First, like visually, you can inspect it. Blue ice is usually good. White ice is usually full of air. It's kind of a good start.
Here in Iceland, where we're filming this, it's glacier ice. So it's been smushed and smashed for 500 years. And it might have sun crust, which is like that popcorn look.
Yeah.
It's because it's like the sun's melting it unevenly. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just the sun's rays are just piercing the ice and introducing a lot of air in it.
Oh, it's introducing air. So you would chip that away with the back of your ice axe.
Yeah, to get into good ice before you place a screw.
That solid looking, solid feeling blue ice.
Yeah.
And waterfall ice, which is probably where a lot of ice climbers are climbing. What are the variations there? Can you get solid blue waterfall ice?
You can. If the waterfall ice forms really well, forms like slowly, consistent freeze, then you usually get really good ice. But if it's been like super windy, for example, and cold, the ice forms really erratically, and there can be a lot more air inside because the water is just everywhere.
You were saying as you're screwing in the screw, you want to feel resistance.
Yeah.
If you don't, what'd you get?
You probably get a crappy placement.
Can you have like snow behind the ice? Like you can have like mud behind limestone in a cave,
Definitely.
or you just all just air.
Yeah.
Can you have anything?
You can have anything. You can have just like a thin layer of ice and then snow inside and then more ice inside. You know, you might need to clear a lot of crap to find a good placement sometimes.
But you can feel whether or not it's all in the resistance of turning it.
Yeah. Like when you're starting to ice climb, I recommend, find a waterfall or somewhere, place like 50 screws, 100 screws, just to get a feel for it, how it feels. Then you kind of build your experience just to feel how the placements are going to be.
It's also really nice if you can put your screws in with both hands, because you are getting tired placing screws, especially once you progress maybe from anchor building for top roping to lead climbing. You're probably hanging some point, and
You have to use your other
you have
hand.
to use one hand only because the other hand is busy holding you up. So practice from the start, even when it's just anchor building for top roping, using both hands. It's quite awkward in the beginning, but it makes a lot of more sense later on.
You've got a variety pack for us. What do you got here?
I have different length. There are also this colorful, nice handles here. The most common use would be this 13 centimeters. Then we have we start from 10.
Okay.
Where we have 13. Then we have 16 and 21.
So what's this thing on the end of your ice strip?
Yeah. So this is the golden orange,
Golden orange?
protecting the tooth
And why is it called orange gold?
because it's so easy to drop it. And then this one, it's so expensive and it's so hard to get it actually to buy it. So when you take this one off, always be sure that you put it in the pocket, stuff it deep in, and zip it.
In a perfect world, you want the longest screw you can put in. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because it doesn't take, once I got the teeth to grab, it wasn't any harder to go in.
Yeah.
It's just a few seconds.
So what's the benefit of these shorter screws?
We don't live in ideal world, and it's
Nope.
not always like enough of ice.
Okay.
So then maybe like we have only 10 centimeters of ice.
Not everyone climbs on a kilometer thick of ice.
Exactly.
You don't want to hit the rock behind it or you damage the teeth.
You can like completely fold them.
And you really do want your clipping point or the hanger to be flush up against the rock. As we saw in our first ice tests, that it just levers it out really badly. What are these rated for?
So they rated for 10 kilometers.
You were getting 14 roughly.
16, 17 for some.
Yeah, the black diamond ones we were getting 16, but then it was breaking the ice because we only had shorter black diamond ones. And then the longer pencil ones that we had that she sacrificed for it, the hanger broke before it came out. You don't really need it stronger than that if you're top roping, if you're not even getting 1 or 2 kilonewtons really.
The thing with top roping is it's really nice you have access to both the top and the bottom, so you can easily place the anchor on the top, and then you can start from the bottom. If anybody has trouble, you can just let them come back down, have a rest, go back up again. It's easier to give feedback to each other as well if you're standing next to each other instead of having one person on the top and not seeing what's going on. So that is ideal, right? And then, so when you're starting your climb from the bottom and also belaying from the bottom, ideally you have the top rope anchor fairly close to the edge, not too close because while you're building the anchor, you're still exposing yourself to the edge, right? But maybe you can extend it so that the redirection for the rope is actually in the steeper section we're climbing. So there's less friction off the rope against the ice.
If your rope's not going up over the edge and back down.
Yeah, because if you have that happening, if the rope going up, it's going to rub against the ice all the time, right? And as it rubs, it melts the ice a little bit, and then maybe you take a break or you change loose climbing, so the rope sits a little bit there, and it freezes against the ice. Somebody needs to get back up and get the rope and stuff. That's like it's much better to just have it extended, so that the rope is basically like free hanging.
But if you are belaying from the top,
Then you want to be far enough back from the edge so that whoever's climbing can get onto the rope safely, walk backwards down the edge, climb. You have maybe your own personal protection as a belayer also on this anchor, so you can go closer to the edge and look down, see what's going on. But also, if somebody has some trouble, you have enough space to build maybe like an improvised pulley system to get them back out. Because if everybody's from the top and there's an exit from the bottom, whoever's down there needs to get back out, no matter what happens, even if a crampon breaks, which does happen.
You always do 2 screws. You never do 1.
Always 2 screws.
Even multi-pitch lead climbing.
Yeah.
An anchor is always going to be 2 points at least.
At least.
So if you have crappy ice, then you would do
3
more,
or however many.
as many in the tank.
Make yourself feel good.
If you do them all in a row, especially in like in a waterfall situation where that grain wants to cut it that way, can you be basically shearing that ice?
You always want to stagger them vertically if you can.
And that's there, or like in the glacial ice, it doesn't matter.
And the glacier ice probably not so much, but I would always try to stagger them vertically.
But let me show you a little basic anchor building. If you don't know anchor building, please, for the love of God, don't go do this on your own. This is just so you know what you're looking at when you see it in real life, so you absorb it faster. So I'm not going to try to be like an entire anchor building course right here, but we'll show you some basic steps, since tomorrow is going to be 2 screws and either an equalized X or just a BFK or a big fat knot. Here, we need it safer than that. There we go. So one option is a V. This is a nice angle. At this angle, these will both be sharing the load. If one was carrying more of the load than the other, you're still technically safe, since each one will be super good enough. But if one were to break, technically you either have the ice screw or the carabiner still involved, but it's going to slide and shock load to the end of this sling. And you don't really want to do that, or you are increasing the force on this last and only point you have. If you do slide off the end of it and you're just clipped like this, you're going to slide off the end. It's important to put a half twist in there. And this is where you're going to put 2 carabiners in here, because you just want anything in your anchor to be redundant. But more often than not, in order to reduce the shock load, you're going to go like this, as long as you don't have a super wide angle, because now you're increasing the force to where each one of these is holding pretty much 100% of the weight, or even more if I were to somehow be able to tie a knot and get those magical theoretical anchor forces they put in diagrams. But you can tie in overhand and it still isolates the strands, or you can tie a figure 8 like you do in like your harness, like you're going to tie in. Address it enough since we are showing you how to do this. Now, if this were to break, I'm going to swing, which means all my ropes are rubbing on the ice, but the ice is not likely to cut what you're doing. That's more of an issue on rock. And there you go. Pretty simple. So if you have to put 1 ice screw down here and 1 ice screw up there, you have to work with what you got, because we live in a perfect world, just like Jonathan. And then you can make your sliding X, or you can just grab it here and then tie. In this case, we'll tie a figure 8 for the example of it. And I see you guys use Dynamis slings a lot, but where do you use this? Where does it apply in your situation?
You can use it for anchor building. You can use it to extend anchors. You could use it to prosic up your ropes, when you're doing a rescue or just getting out of a moulin you just rappelled into. Super many uses for this cord.
So it's more versatile tool rather than a Dynamis sling that's closed and just a singular loop.
Yeah.
Now, let's say I really like my anchor and the edge is more near the floor there before it goes over the edge. Can you use this to extend, or do you just use this to just build your anchor in a way that's over the edge?
You could extend it. I would probably double it up just to get the extra strength.
Okay.
To have a bomber anchor.
And then you just terminate it with like an overhand?
Yeah, overhand follow through or double fisherman's, any kind of...
Any terminating?
Yeah, any knot that needs 2 ropes,
Any bend.
With full strength,
That's where like just anchor building courses, books, anything. There's Instagram accounts that are just dedicated to knots. Yeah, I think it's super helpful to learn how anchors are built, and highlighting half of what we do is building anchors. The other half is just pulling the webbing across. So if you do a super wide angle like this and you walk on top of it, you have a different sport. I mean, it's really bad for your forces. That's what I meant to say.
This is actually what happens on the glaciers here. You can see like how much is missing there. We climbed 4 times 10 meters on this. So that we have a lot of volcanic ash on the glaciers, and it's like on the rope, and then it's just like the aluminum carabiners are destroyed. So that's the reason why we always use carabiners.
When the rope's going to be rubbing over this.
Yes. Only where the rope is rubbing through.
Yeah. This is super strong enough as far as strengths go. If you're in good ice, and you're using all the tools properly, it's like 5 or 10 times stronger than you're actually putting on in a top rope scenario, because let's say an average person is 1 kilonewton, and this stuff's rated for 22 kilonewtons. We've got a ton of videos on that, of us breaking stuff like this. You put your rope on there, and you either lower or you walk down and you climb up, you toss the rope, you tie in, and you top rope just like you would at the climbing gym.
Yep.
Cool. And just don't hit your rope with the axe. Let's go on the glacier.
We have to introduce you.
To ASMR.
For ice climbers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, so this is Glacier Mike. We're going to start the process with a flaked rope we have here on the ground, making sure there are no tangles or no knots in the rope. What I'm also going to do is make sure I put a safety away from the edge, right? Because you don't want to dump over the edge. Not good form. So we're going to go right behind where Ryan is now. We're going to use our beautiful mountaineering axe, and our extras are here hanging out as well. We have a little bit of summer crust on the surface, which is basically sun-baked ice. Now in the winter, we can usually get down to pretty hard ice. You notice this stuff here easily coming off. So we don't want to put a screw in this. So I want to get down just a little bit just to see if I can get to some hard stuff here. And this is just for the safety. So I'm not too anal about this, but just scrape it away. Give it a few twists until it sets. Now pull out the crank. And as I turn, what I'm watching for is the core to come out like you learned. All right, so I have a nice solid white core here. If I hit any black, I'm hitting ash. If I hit pockets, I'm hitting air. Right, so now it's coming through nice and solid. I'm going to get to the point now. You notice the crank stopped here, and I don't want to continue to turn it because you remember the threads of the strength. So I'm going to back it out, and now we have our direction of pull, which is going to be toward the edge right there. I'm going to take the end of the rope. Notice you put out 2 ends so you can easily find them. I'm going to tie an 8, and a special technique here I learned. Okay, and this is just making sure. This is called a clean knot every time, baby. So what I'm going to do now is I'm basically going to put something on here, a carabiner on here. This will be my edge safety. You know, it's small but in charge. That's how we like it in the guiding world. No need for big carabiners, huh? All right, so now I'm going to throw it to the edge just to measure it. All right, I think we're good to go. Let's come back, and I'm going to pull it away from the edge. I'm going to steal somebody's carabiner here because it's in front of me, and I like taking carabiners from Jeanette. Going to just do a simple clove. The Hester knot, as we say. Right, and the cool thing about this is an adjustable knot, right? Adjustable hitch. Put it on. Boom!
So now you're safe.
Yeah, you got to check it. All right, there we go. There's a video, actually, you guys are going to see. We're testing ice screws. Here. Yeah, there you go. Right over there. So now we're going to look at the anchor area we're going to build for the anchors over the edge. I'm going to grab the mountaineering ice axe here.
This is not the same axe you're climbing with.
No, it is. This is a hybrid axe, right? So we have a slight bend in the shaft. It's a little easier. Sometimes you have a pommel here, which we don't have here for the grip, so you can use it as a single axe to climb with. But this is a nice bend shaft. A little smaller typically than a mountaineering axe, like a BD Raven. But it does have an adze and a pick, right? An adze meant to shovel off the nice summer crest here. Some have a hammer for hammering in pitons, like you may know. Check out the edge, right? Because here we have an edge that's sloping down toward the clients in this case. So this is a good idea for edge protection. Now, if we had a positive edge or a flat edge, you know, I may reassess. But as we said here, it's always good to have safety as we have. And I'm not going to go over the edge, so this is a good situation. Now, when I'm placing screws, we have 2 options, as you learned before, you will learn in the video. We can place it here, or if we want the anchor over the edge. That's for top roping scenario, meaning that I want to see the carabiner on the bottom to make sure that it's not going to flip. And also, it's a good point for the client to stop, right? So this allows a climber to see the goal before they come up and potentially, like one of the carabiners starts cross-loading or something.
Because you're going to lower them back to the ground.
Well, in the top rope situation, if it's over the edge, yeah, I'm lowering them back to the ground. However, if it's up here behind the anchor 3 meters away, then that's lowering in a hole like we'll do later today. And we're going to do something called hitting the Gnar. So we'll practice because the Gnar hits back if you hurt, actually. Choose a nice location right here. I'm going to break it to ice. All right, so I feel good with this. As beginner guides, you do this, and sometimes you stab yourself in the leg with it, and you act like nothing happened as your leg's bleeding. All right, so same process, guys. Nothing too exciting here. Putting in the screws. Have some breakage in the top, but we have these beautiful 21 centimeters going in. Petzl, baby, all day. Because they're going so well. Nice, look at that, perfect. Yeah, so basically, I mean, what we want is a minimum of 21, right? So if we look at this screw length, we can take it out again. I mean, which is fine here. So if we're doing, this anchor is extended with a 5 meter. So if we're doing a 5 meter, I put it a little further away. There's been no standard we've discussed in regard to how far to put them in regard to extending it with a 5 meter cord let. But in this, I put it maybe a screw and a quarter, personally. Too far apart, then we'll change the angle, right? What we want is that ideal angle so they both share about 60% of the load. All right, so check out this non-locking carabiner and a locking carabiner. Now, the reason we use a non-locker and a locker, we could use 2 lockers, right, if we wanted to. But the non-locker, it's just basically a weight-saving thing, right? The thing to consider about lockers, though, is, I mean, they easily unlock. In the climbing world, like you can use 2 non-lockers because they're under tension, right? So they're not going to bounce around. In the climbing world, clients sometimes, or this guiding world, clients that are very excited and they don't listen to your instructions and they climb over the anchor. Right, so then hypothetically something like this could happen, and then they come back down and the carabiner's left in a really weird way. That's why we have 1 locker. But this is just weight saving. That's all it is. There's no other reason that we do have 1 non-locker.
It's your master point. You want the lockers.
Exactly. Right. So I'm just gonna put an 8 here on the end of this. Clean out every time, baby. All right, cool. Now I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna put a clove hitch on this side, actually. And the clove hitch is nice because, as we know, the clove hitch is adjustable, right? I'm just going to put a knot on the end of this because it's never going to come off past the knot once it's tight there. All right, so now we can kind of look at it, and we could definitely get over the edge here. Now what I want, when we think of anchors, right, we want to have equalized, redundant, non-extendable, and also consider time, how long they're in for. Now we have conditions that are fairly cold, but I'm still going to cover them up, maybe put my bag over there. To prevent any radiation that would come, of course, because we do have solar radiation now. So basically, if we think of the threads of the strength, eventually the metal is going to heat the hole, and then the hole will expand, and I can lift them out, which will then, in the summer, we check them every 30 minutes. We would have to maybe move the anchors. In the winter, we can get maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours out of them or something. I'm going to tie what's called a bunny ears 8. All right, so I'm just going to tie kind of an 8 here. I'm going to grab a bite just like this. The standard 8 is here. Right? Just going to grab the bite. Pull it through, and now if you notice, I have 2 points. So if we think about this, right, why do we have redundancy? So we have 1, 2, and we just have 1 loop here. All right, so this gives us redundancy at this point for 2 points of failure at each point. If 1 screw fails, it's backed up. So this is a really cool carabiner. This is an Eldridge. This is a triple action directional. Right, as we can see here, the directional is here, which means it prevents it from cross-loading because, as we know, the major axis testing this way, we don't want to cross-load it, meaning pulling it apart like so. So in this case, we put a rope here. It will always remain on the major axis, and we have a nice steel insert to prevent wear. Now, if we didn't have a triple action, we would just use 2 lockers opposite and opposed at the focal point here, but we don't have to do that because I do, like a Shangri-La band, have a triple locker with a steel insert. So I'm just going to cover this up a little bit here, love. We have an equalized anchor based off where we're climbing, as we can see, right? But if it wasn't equalized, I could just adjust the clove hitch to change that. And notice that's why I left slack here. So I could adjust it either direction. Now, this is a static rope or semi-static rope. Now, in the climbing world, while we use dynamics for lead falls, right? We want to absorb the impact. In this top roping world with clients or people that are not experienced climbers, we want to keep the rope under tension constantly, right? So they don't want to fall down. And this allows us to use a very cheap rope, which is a semi-static rope versus a $400 Sterling Nano IX rope. So in the climbing world, in guiding world, we use mostly statics. We don't need dynamics, right? Because we're not taking lead falls. We don't need extension. But the thing that actually sucks, if you do use dynamic and you lower someone over the edge, the hardest thing for clients is going to be this motion of going back over the edge, right? Now, as a guide, typically what we can do is we can actually sit on the edge with them and do a vector pull, meaning I can control how far they're going over the edge by holding the rope and pulling it up or down. Right, and managing the munter hitch here with the slack in my hand. Now, with it, what happens, and happened many times to me, with a dynamic, this motion really stretches it out. So even though I don't give slack, they keep going back, and they wind up just going like bloop, and they just go head over heels. So truly, this is why I use a static rope, because this is the key point for a client when they transition, that I don't have that stretch right here. You notice it almost doesn't stretch at all. This is how clients fall. And they're like, how do I get back up? And what they don't know is you just do this. Right. Small things in life matter, huh?
That was to tell your dates.
It's the motion of the ocean. It's not the size of the boat, Ryan. Take some slack from here. Just enough to get down one time. Gonna take it to the edge. Gonna clip it here. I don't throw carabiners down, right? Clients are gonna be there. Not good form. Yeah, cut out the parts that make you look bad. Yeah, cool. So I'm at the edge now. Now notice I detach my safety. I check to make sure that nothing is twisted there. And now I'm in a safe area, right? So this is you want to have the right technique to toss it so you don't get tangled up. I usually toss under the leg. There you go. That's a guiding approved technique by Mike Reed. We're going to start first. This is a traditional Icelandic guiding introduction. All right, we're just, so the head's good. We just want to always check before we start videos that the axe head works well. All right, cool. Now we have 2 ropes coming down. We already set up the anchor in the previous video on the top there. That's a top roping anchor. So we can kind of see as we pull this, we can actually get a perspective of that carabiner there. We can see it on the edge. We have some rope on the left side, which would be the belay rope. We have the climber's rope here that I'm stepping on. See, we always say, let your client step on the rope. Don't do it yourself, right? They're professionals. Now, the thing to consider, right, when you're doing a top rope is that if you have a heavy client, right, where's the direction of pull? The direction of pull is going to be toward the wall this direction. I see a lot of guides or people when they belay, they're belaying like somewhere out here. And then when the client falls down, they're going to be pulled into the wall. In this case, put my left foot up here. And this would, I would face the direction of pull, then I could absorb the impact here. But you also need to be careful of falling ice because the ice will hit you in the face. It hurts.
So this is going to be standard belay.
Yeah, this is same thing, but the only thing is ear calls, you have gloves. Yeah, that's really weird. You don't have your fingers.
This is a grigri, and you can use a grigri or an ATC like Jeanette to belay. Belaying is no different than belaying in any other climbing scenario, including in climbing in the gym. But we don't want to get too deep into that right now because this video is already too long, and you can learn belaying from the person you go with who knows what they're doing the first time you go out. But I do want to show you how to tie in because that is an essential part of you understanding how you are incorporated into the system. And we're going to start by showing you how to tie a figure 8. When you bend a rope over like this, that's called on a bite. And what you're going to do is you're going to tie a figure 8. So you go around the rope once, you go around a second time, and when you go back through that hole, you have what looks like an 8. Now, you cannot get this onto your harness because your harness doesn't open, not in that way. So what we're going to do is tie half this knot and then trace it after we go through our harness. So you want to take the rope about a little bit more than shoulder width apart, and you want to take this side, and you're going to want to do that same thing where you go around the rope once, and you go around a second time, and you're going to create an 8, but with this single strand. You're going to take the strand, and you're going to go up in your harness. You go through the leg loop and the waist belt, which is going to match what your belay loop is in. And you're going to go all the way up until the knot is about 1 fist away from your harness. And you're going to basically trace this knot. And you're going to pull that first stage all the way through. And because this rope goes around, you're going to go around. This rope goes through that hole, you're going to go through that hole. And think of it as like a train track. You're just going to copy it parallel all the way around. Comes around, you go up like this. Now, as long as you have about 6 to 12 inches of tail, you are totally fine. You are done. But if you don't want this tail in your way, you can kind of just go up like this, and you can get it out of your way and keep it a little bit more tidy. Some people call that a backup knot. It's not necessary for your safety. Now we have an entire video in our Big Wall course about knots, and that would be super helpful for you to see if you don't know them, where we talk about the clove hitch that Mike did on the ice screw anchor and the figure 8 and a whole bunch of other stuff that might help you. We just don't want to get too naughty in this course because it'll get too long, and this is all you need to know for right now. Now, while Mike's showing you the technique of ice climbing, you're going to notice that he is clipped with a carabiner into a figure of 8 into his belay loop. The belay loop also goes through the leg loops and the waist belt. We just want you to understand the context of that because it's super good enough if you understand the rules. This is a carabiner that's non-locking. This is a locking carabiner that I have on my harness here, and all you have to do is twist it and then open it, and that is an auto-locking carabiner. And this is not super good enough. This carabiner cannot be twisted open. It has to be pushed up and then twisted and then opened. And that is what you call a triple auto locker. But you want this to be very difficult to open if you are just going to be clipped to one thing and it's not going to be redundant. You don't want it to open. But you can see in a bunch of videos I got of Brent opening carabiners of all sorts of types with nothing more than the rope. that was not meant to create gear fear, but to respect carabiners and the fact that they can open, regardless of what type they are. Now, this is super acceptable enough in the guiding industry because you are trying to move 8 clients through. Everyone's cold, you've got gloves on, and things are freezing. And this is, for top roping, super safe enough. I definitely would not be leading like this. I just didn't want you to see that in the video without explaining it. And a last pro trick is to look as new as possible by leaving your chalk bag on you, but Shangri-La Ban, have some hand warmers in there and stay comfortable while you ice climb.
If you're with friends, you click check each other. You know, click, click, we check. This is in right orientation. We're good to go. It feels good, right? Pretty aggressive axes. These are actually, we have an aggressive climber behind us named Gnar who climbs some gnarly shit, as we say. So he uses pretty aggressive axes. But these are also nice if you want to eventually progress. These are grivel axes, and you can see we have a very aggressive bend to the shaft here. If you compare it to a standard axe, which would be straight shafted, you can see the actual massive aggressive bend that this would have in this area here. Also, it allows us to have a really nice grip. We have a nice pommel here so we can rest, which will all help us as we're progressing as ice climbers. These are pretty aggressive climbing crampons. Now, the difference of these climbing crampons is we have these vertical front points, right? So these are meant to penetrate this really hard or harder winter ice. If you're climbing in summer crust, you can typically just use a standard horizontal point, which is like a walking crampon. But so we have some semi-hard ice here, so I'm using these nice vertical crampons here. There's 2 climbing techniques that we basically have. We have the A-frame, which we can learn later on the harder walls, and we have the 2-hand technique, which is something good to master because it allows us to use the basic technique of hips against the wall, making sure your legs are at 90 degrees, which we'll talk about as we go up this 50 minus 40 here wall. 10 meters, baby. So now the thing that we're going to think about, we're going to start with the axes and also talk about the front points. So when we're climbing, we want to make sure that the swing is extremely important, right? Many people swing this like a baseball bat. They get this huge swing and they come in, but a lot of the power is in the lat, right? It's built up down here, so it's a downward pull and a wrist flick, right? So if you notice my swing here, I can start very close to the wall and you get a fair amount of power in the swing. If you notice, I didn't have to come back far because the power is generated from a downward pull and a wrist flick. And notice that as I turn my wrist, I turn it as I get close to the ice. Many people, they'll do this because they'll forget to turn, or they'll do this because they twist the wrist too close, right? I'll go a little slower again. I'm going to pull down, and as I get here, right before the pommel hits the ice, it twists in, right? So this is the motion. It's a downward pull, right? So again, something simple as that. The other side will come here, right? So this is how we want to practice, really practice the swing to try to get that down. So that's the end of the swing now. Now I do want to come down to my crampons here, and this is something we really have to understand climbing, is that when we're climbing, if you notice here, we have what are called primary points and secondary points. So these are the primaries, these are 2 secondaries. Now, if you kick properly, you can actually rest on the secondaries. And what does that mean? That means when I kick in, right, and I lower my foot, you see how the secondaries sit against the ice? Now it makes a nice platform for me to stand on, right? So that means that I have to have the proper heel drop, right? Now, as I'm going up, if you notice, I can kind of stand on this nice platform here, like I'm doing. A lot of the climbing happens at the feet. Right? If your feet are poor, you're coming off the wall, and then you're stressing your arms. Your arms should not be stressed during the climb. But if I'm here, as you can see, my heel is fairly up and my knee is close to the wall. As soon as I drop my heel, it comes out, right? So I want to make sure that when I'm climbing, that I have my proper heel lift. And also, if you notice, my heel is straight out. It's not left or right. If it comes into my body, the points come out. So that means I want to have my heel straight out. I want to have it just below perpendicular, which means it engages the secondary points. So this is a good placement for the heel. What a lot of people tend to do when they climb is they'll actually put their foot like this and they'll just kick their toe against the wall. And they'll keep doing this. And they'll be like, why can't I go up? Nice wide position with my feet right here. I have my knees closer to the wall. And then that allows me, I could almost stand without any support at all. This is good placement of my feet, right? That I have this nice platform that we talked about right now. Does that make sense? So we're going to do the 2-hand technique now. And we're going to learn the A-frame technique later. Don't worry. You'll learn it. I promise. But this is the basic technique you should start with because you don't want to hit yourself in the face with the axe, which the A-frame is known for, unfortunately, sometimes. So the 2-hand technique, I'm going to do about shoulder width apart, fairly high. All right. Now notice, if I don't get a good penetration, I want to go a second time, right? If you get hit in the same hole, you're a freaking Shangri-La Ban, which means boss in Chinese. Okay, so here we go. So now I have 2-hand. I have the 2-hand technique up here. I have the axis shoulder width apart. Good placement, full extension. What I'm going to do next is notice my body straight against the ice. We talked about heels being up, shoulder width apart, straight out. What we're going to do now is I'm going to look down at my feet, and I'm going to bring out my butt. Now, as I bring up my feet, I do what's called center, center, wide, wide. But did you notice my arms didn't move at all? What I'm not doing is a pull-up, right? I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to come down again, right? What many people do is this. Now, if you do that over a vertical wall, you're just going to pull up the wall, right? I don't want to tire these muscles out. For me, they're massive, but they actually, you don't see them because my jacket is tight, but I have massive arms. But these get tired quickly because my quads are much larger. I'm going to go up again. I'm going to extend here, full extension. Accent second time. Same hole, like a boss. Excellent. Again, I'm going to look down at my feet. I'm going to go center, center, wide, wide. Now notice again, I did not pull up. And my position, my butt went out. It's just my hips hinged, right? And now, if you notice my position, a little more than 90 degrees here. My feet are still in a good position. And I can literally put one finger here because I'm standing up. I'm not pulling up. Right? And now you see this placement. This is a rest position. You should be able to be in this position, in a rest position where you actually don't need, I can just do this. So my hands should never feel pain on a wall like this. Full extension here. In, full extension. Right? Hips out. Look down at your feet. Center, center, wide, wide. And sometimes the thing you want to consider as well as you progress in ice climbing is the placement, right? So what I'm not going to do is place them poorly. I want to look at good locations. I can place in bulges here. In depressions. I'm not going to place on a bulge, right? So I'm going to choose where I place my foot. So I may go a little further out here. I may choose to move over a tiny bit with my left, right? Until I get a nice good placement, because your feet are your foundation. So you want to make sure before you move, these are solid. Right? I'm going to stand straight up. Again, now I could take a rest by bringing down one hand, shake it out. Bringing down the second, shake it out. And that's the basic technique. I'm trying to make it look as hard as possible. I'm going to take out the axe. I'm going to choose my location. This depression looks very nice for placement. Really nice penetration there. I'm going to move over my body, shift it so I can get into this depression up here. Because I'm going to choose my placement. Right? And both placements are bomber now. I'm going to look down, hinge my hips out. Center, center, wide, wide. And notice as well when I'm down here, I'm not doing any big swings. It's a very controlled movement, right? And now I'm choosing a good location for my feet. I'm happy with both my feet. I'm going to get ready to stand straight up against the wall. Notice now that as the wall gets steeper, my hips go against the wall. As soon as my butt comes out, I have to start holding on. Right? But if my hips are really far against the wall, again, I have this nice placement where I can have no tension on my hands and full tension just on my calf muscles, which is okay because, as I said, my calves are massive.
It's important. The muscle at the front of the shin. And when you're kicking your crampon into the ice, you should be engaging your muscle there, the tibialis, to raise the toe, to make sure the spikes are going to go in and not just the rubber of your boots going to hit the ice.
Axes are shoulder width apart. The difference you're going to notice with the A-frame and the two-hand techniques, I don't have an axe in line with me. Because if I had an axe here, it would be an A, right? Where I don't, this makes sure that the axe is not going to come out and hit me in the face. If the axe is here, there's a chance it will do that. I'm going to take the axes out. And notice also, I'm not cranking the axes left and right. Right? What we don't want to do is this motion. I don't want to break the pick. So I'm coming straight out at a 90. That disengages because if you look at the axe, there's actually a blade on the top here, which will break the ice as it's torqued up. So a nice little thing to know. And now as I come down, my feet against the wall, I get lower down, and then you could do a special technique like this. This is how we're taught to lower in the industry. All right.
Hey, good job.
Nice, thank you. What's different here is that it's in line with my body, right? So I'm going to now start the actual climbing, which is called the A-frame technique. Now I'm going to place an axe in line with my body high. I can use this very conveniently located depression there. I'm going to place it there. Now, if you notice the axe, these axes are in line with my body, right? So what I can do now is if I want to kind of go up, the same technique, I'm going to look down on my feet, bring them up here, right? Now, notice the cool thing about the A-frame is my axe is still down here, right? As I step up, I can take it out. And that was a motion where I pulled back. Again, I'm going to angle it up here. I'm going to extend fully, right? I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to look down at my feet, but notice the axes in line with each other. Look down at my feet, center, center, wide, wide. I'm going to look up, get ready to stand. And I could take them out, or I could wait until I come up and then take it out. But the cool thing about this area here is that the most efficient way to pull out the axe will be when your arm's at about a 90-degree bend here. And I could easily just do this, right? Because if it's up here and I'm trying to pull it out up here, then it's I have much more of a struggle, where here I have much more leverage, right, in this area here. So I'm going to come back down here. This is how it originally was. I'm going to take this axe out now, and I'm going to place it high, right? Again, in line here. The thing to consider is, let's say it gets very hard, right, where I'm actually climbing harder vertical or harder overhung ice. I do my position like we've learned before. I'm going to bring my feet up, look down, center, center, wide, wide. I'm going to stand up. Now, if it gets very hard, I'm going to be pulling back on the axe. There is a risk that it goes boom. This actually happens to people. It happened to the gnarly climber there. It happened to me a few times where I get hit in the face with the axe, right? So this is, just be aware. I would recommend starting with the two-hand technique, keeping it wide. This technique is efficient because it's less axe placements. It's 1, 1, 1 instead of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? So this is a good thing to learn to be efficient on the ice and to move much quicker. But just be aware of the risk that when you have axes placed in front of your face, that they can come out when they're under tension or you're climbing hard overhang. And then, my friends, you can use a hockey helmet. That's what we do here in Iceland. If it gets super hard, we cover the face because the money maker is here, right? You have to protect it at all costs. Now, as you said, I'm stopping at 90 here, so I can simply take the axe. Nice, comes out nice and well here. And I can put it up higher, choose a location. Maybe I'm going to just choose right there, right? Now, another thing I want to talk about is, for me, my stance is fairly wide. I like a wide stance, and that gives me nice stability, right? The thing, stance is somewhat of a personal preference. Some guides, some climbers like to kind of have a stance that's fairly close together. If you're on some sketchy ice, you may have to do a weird stance where you're kind of in this position. But in general, what you should get to is you should get to a point where you find something comfortable for you. And this is just more than shoulder width for me, works really well. This is a good foundation that I usually climb from. And then from there, I can adjust my position to put my foot in this depression or whatever the case may be. But just so you know, that's a personal preference thing. But whatever you can try it out and see how it feels for you. So I'll go up one last time again. The same technique we've learned before. I'm going to look down at my feet, center, center, wide, wide. And as I come up, I'm going to be efficient and take out the axe as I come up. So I'm just going to pull it out, and now it's ready to go for the second hit up here. I'm not going to strike the rope. And this is another thing with the A-frame, is the rope then is in the way, right? So you have to make sure that you have an accurate swing. A good technique to do is to look down when you hit the ice, right? Unless you have a hockey cage on or something and you're climbing really hard ice. But the ice comes out, obviously. If I start breaking this, right, these pieces can just clip you right in the nose or clip you in the eye. So generally speaking, the safest way when you strike is, right, I look down. I don't have to stare at the axe penetrating.
Feel like I'm called out.
I just remembered because as I saw blood on Ryan's face dripping down, I was like, oh yeah, actually do get hit in the face with ice. And it really hurts and it bleeds. That's the thing to consider with A-frame. It is much more efficient. It's something you should learn. The personal preference points would be how far you are apart. I go pretty wide, as you can see right here. And be aware that the axe can come out, but it's a very efficient form of climbing with this same basic technique as a two-hand technique to actually go up the wall here.
So this was our first ice climb. So let us narrate kind of what we learned while we show you how we did it wrong. I think we approached it as climbers because that's what we are. And you are rewarded as a climber when you put your foot up high and stand on it. But you can't really get your teeth in correctly, and you end up hanging onto your arms too much when you do it like a climber.
When I'm climbing, I'm basically trying to get my knee up by my eye. That's the size of step I would like to take for progress. As Ryan said, that really doesn't work well when you're ice climbing, because at that angle, when your foot is up so high, you really can't get the teeth in the front of the crampons into the ice at the right angle.
Or the power.
Or the power. Yeah, you can't generate the force necessary to get.
I want to do this.
We're just on our toes here. And so whenever I have my foot placed like that on a rock, I have a tendency to want to put the edge of my climbing shoe to get more rubber on the little edge that I'm trying to stand on. And what that does is take the teeth right out of the ice. And so if I wasn't keeping my feet straight in, they were falling out.
There were two things that I struggled with the most, and getting the teeth in the crampons into the ice, and then also getting good purchase with the ice axe was the other thing that I really struggled with.
Interesting that when I did hit it, sometimes it would just flop on me. You really do have to hit it hard and flick the wrist and like really push it into the ice. And when I tried to pull it out and it got stuck on me, I did have a tendency to want to go like this, and that is exactly what Mike said not to do. Yeah, because you're supposed to punch it in and pull down on it. If you pull it straight out, it's gonna pull the teeth out. In the context of a 10-meter wall, I'm not trying to conserve arm strength, right? And so like, I did have my arms bent almost every single time that I was trying to focus on my footwork. And if you keep them straight, just like when you're climbing, if you can keep your arms straight, if you're constantly holding a thing like this while climbing, you're gonna wear out these massive muscles that Mike supposedly has. Oh no. Well, what I really wanted to share was just like, it is a lot harder than Mike is making it look with his pinky, and it is a great idea to be practicing this stuff as much as possible right there on the ground.
I mean, I definitely think a lot of things look a lot easier when you watch somebody do them that knows what they're doing. And you think, how hard could it be, right? You're creating every handhold and foothold, but trust me, it's very hard.
Similar, like in climbing, if I'm not confident in the foot, then it's hard mentally to like weight it.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, am I just going to pop off the wall? So I guess like there's part technique and then there's part learning to trust. Like even when something feels insecure, like maybe you'll stick to it anyway.
Well, I could show you something, like if we were to spend a few hours here, we would do a little bit longer tutorial, right? So I'll show you what I actually do, how to address this exact issue with clients, is we actually do the ice climbing preparation here at ground level. So for example, just to show you like what we'd actually do, is I would give each client an app, and I would just have them sit here and just do this 20 times. Just practice hitting, removal, hitting, removal, hitting, and I would diagnose their swing here because I can't see it up there. And then what I do after we get the hit is then I have them just do the feet. So I would just have them do this like 20 times. And then I could actually sit there and I could physically move their feet into the position so they have the kinesthetic awareness of what it feels like, because on the wall you don't feel it. You're just trying to get it, right? So an actual ice climbing day of 8 hours starts with these exercises all over the glacier before you even get here. So by the time you get here, you trust your crampons enough that you know you can bounce them and move them. Now you've just done it. We didn't actually do this whole tutorial setup lesson because we don't have the time for it. But if we did, this is how we would start, definitely, to address that exact issue, because every person has it.
Yeah,
They trust their feet, right? Boom. I take the end and I pull. And there's never a knot on the edge. And we go, whoop, bang, rope down. The reason we pull the rope down, actually, is because if you remember the edge safety that we had, that edge safety allows us to access the edge safely. You like that?
Yeah.
Safety safely?
Yeah.
Right? So I basically use the rope, I bring it up with me, and then I have an edge safety. I could use a 5-meter cordelette that we always carry, or some sling or something, but this is just neat because I have a very long personal safety I can use. That's why I have it, and I pulled it down. And of course, the anchor is still over the edge up there.
All right, welcome to our next climb. Now we're actually going to climb something worth climbing. I have 2 lockers on the screws there. I have an overhand knot. I have a little carabiner inside the knot, so I can just remove the carabiner, then the knot is easy to untie. Master point carabiner here with a steel insert, which is nice. Preserves the carabiner with all the ash on this glacier. Otherwise, it can definitely create a groove, and it can happen fast. It can happen in just a few climbs. Here we have the munter hitch, and now I have a Prusik third hand on my rope. And usually we would lower the climber down and then belay them up using the same hitch. The munter hitch is great for that. It's good for lowering and also for belaying. No, you don't need to change the system at all. It's just good to go.
So that's what you're belaying with, and
Yep.
this is your backup.
Yeah, the munter has a lot of friction. Weight is on the anchor.
Yeah, it is.
As long as you have a little bit of force on the rope, the weight is on the anchor.
Do you clip in at all?
If I feel like I need to, I will. If I'm climbing with friends that are experienced and I don't really feel the need to stand on the edge, then I don't. But then usually I would add another safety line to either of the screws or the master point.
This anchor, for context, is fairly far away from the edge.
So here you want some space for the climber to walk to the edge, go off the edge to get down. You also want some space to make a rescue system if you need to haul them out.
Now, what's unique about our context, and what are we doing? You're not lowering.
Yeah, we have another rope there on the other side of the Mulan. There's a lower angle there. We're actually going to climb some pretty overhanging stuff down here. So it's easier for the person just to rappel down the less steep side, then they're going to clip into their rope once they're down there. It's slightly different from what you would usually do.
Nice!
Oh, the arms! Oh, they hurt! Yeah! Oh, they won't close! They won't close!
Stand up.
He's doing his technique, he's a croucher.
Gracefully getting over the line.
Beach whale. The technique.
That's an approved top hat technique.
Nice, good job. Hitting the Gnar. The Gnar hits back though, doesn't it?
The figure 4 was fun
It was, wasn't it?
because it's being held by him while I did it. But it's just you can't close your hands.
T-Rex arms. Ice pick journeys, baby.